to rise and speak on this very important MPI, and as the Parliamentary Secretary for Schools and a member of the Andrews Labor government, it is a great time to be in the state of Victoria when we're investing in education. And when you put forward the notion of an education state, you're setting a high bar for your community, you're setting a high bar for our state. But we want to be known for transforming the lives of each and every child in our state and student to make sure they have every opportunity in life. But we've had a late conversion. We've had the member for Sandringham finally get on board. He's got on board with early education, early childhood. Pity he didn't read the budget papers where $5 billion has been invested in early childhood education. Pity he didn't read the budget papers where free TAFE has been rolled out to 2 early childhood education certifications. That's happening in our state. You've got to read the budget papers and you've got to catch up. And then the member for Ilden, an extraordinary contribution talking about asbestos removal in our schools. Remember what the coalition did. They got a blue sticker, they got a yellow sticker, and they went nuts. And they went to every single school with a bit of asbestos and slapped it straight on the window and said, that was it. That was it. Well, we've got a record program of removing asbestos and making our schools safe from asbestos in Victoria. That's putting your money where your mouth is, because when you front up each year to do a budget, it's about values. It's about what you stand for in your state and what you prioritise. And let me take those opposite through some of these numbers because they are worthy of looking through. Over their term in office, and the member for Sandringham said that standards over the last 10 years have been slipping in our state. Well, what happened during the first 4 years of that 10 years? What happened? We had unprecedented cuts to education presided over by the Baillieu and Napthine governments. A correlation from taking money out of schools, ripping the heart and soul out of schools, taking away the education maintenance allowance and punishing those that rely on that support so greatly will lead to worse outcomes. But when the Premier and the Deputy Premier and the Minister for Education fronted up and Labor's platform was put forward in 2014, we set ambitious targets. We set goals to change the landscape of education, not in a term of parliament, but for a generation. And by setting high standards and high targets that we were accountable to in 2020 and 2025, we wanted to make sure that your postcode wasn't a determinant for your success, that your circumstances in growing up didn't mean to a second-rate education. That was the values that we put forward. So the member for Sandringham can talk down our teachers and talk down our schools and early childhood educators. But right now we are investing in our schools, investing in our kinders, and we're transforming our state for the better. And I'm happy to say that NAPLAN, we've seen some of the best results ever in the state of Victoria.